One.
Good morning. Just wanted to do a video explaining a major concept in both this unit and this course, that of the tragic hero. One of the major themes of this course is we're taking a look at two fairly tragic heroes in both of our major works we're studying. And so I want to talk about how this concept of the tragic hero, and especially the modern tragic hero, applies to Death of a Salesman. So it used to be that, Shakespeare, a lot of older writers in, hundreds of years ago used to think that tragedy could only occur when common people looked at famous people or nobles or powerful people or people with some kind of royalty or seen as some kind of divinity, would only see tragedy in the fall of those kind of people, those very high-placed nobles, kings, queens, famous people, etc. They couldn't. Authors back then didn't think you could see tragedy in the common man. Arthur Miller had a real belief that tragedy was everywhere around us, and it is looking at our peers and tragedy that befalls our peers that can really affect us. So the modern tragic hero, is when a common person like Willy Loman, a salesman, this everyday man, when he falls, that is more strikingly effective to people because they can see themselves in the fall of that hero. They are common. We are almost all of us are common people. Not many of us are kings and queens, etc. So it's not in the fall of a king or queen that we find tragedy in modern times. It's the fall of a normal, everyday person. That's really what Willy Loman is. And the tragedy that befalls Willy Loman, we get a bit afraid of because we see that could happen to us if we live a certain set of circumstances. So I just want to go over what a tragedy is and then why tragedy occurs in Death of a Salesman. So, a tragedy occurs when, the main character has laid out his life in order to preserve their sense of human dignity. Okay, they struggle with what the main character attempts to gain, what they feel to be their rightful place in society. And that's really the key here. It is Willy's attempt to get this American dream, to be successful, to be rich, everything that he feels society demands of what he sees as success. He has a very skewed vision of what success is, and this really leads him down the wrong path and his family down the wrong path. Every tragic hero has a tragic flaw, and what sometimes confuses people is the tragic flaw that a hero has is not a lack of something. Some people see a flaw would be, well, you're not strong enough, or you're not intelligent enough, etc. The tragic flaw that occurs in a tragic hero is not a lack of something. It is actually an overabundance of it. It's having too much of something, too much strength, too much intelligence. And this leads the tragic hero down to their flaw. The most famous tragic hero is the character of Hamlet. Hamlet's tragic flaw was that he was really, really smart and he wanted to think everything out. He couldn't just simply act. And so his lack of ability to simply act, his need to incessantly pore over every decision and look at every possible outcome, resulted in him putting things off and him procrastinating in doing something that he needed to want. If he just went and killed his uncle like he should have, because his uncle killed his father, the play would be over and there would be no downfall of anybody around him. Because he puts everything off, he doesn't do that, and eventually he dies, and pretty much everyone in the whole play dies because of Hamlet's procrastination. So that's his tragic flaw. So every hero in a story has a tragic flaw. For the example I gave is Anakin Skywalker, so from Star Wars. Anakin Skywalker is also a tragic hero, someone who could have been great. But because of their tragic flaw he had too much ambition, and so this led him to too much anger. This led him down to the dark side of the Force. And so, Anakin Skywalker, who could have been this great Jedi Knight, becomes this awful, evil figure of Darth Vader. So that's kind of a way to remember what a tragic flaw is. It's not a lack of something, but it's not overabundance of it. You have too much of something. Anakin Skywalker had too much ambition, too much anger inside, and this led him down to his downfall, his eventual death, and then downfall of everyone around him as well. So according to Arthur Miller, the eventual downfall of tragic hero is the result of two things. The hero's tragic flaw, yes, and we talked a little bit about that, but it's also the society in which he lives. Willy Loman sees people around him as successful, and he thinks he should be as well. This concept, we're going to talk a little bit about the concept of the American dream tomorrow and why Willy Loman is so desires to find what that American dream is. and he searches for it, and eventually he doesn't get it. And as a result, this kind of brings him down and the downfall of others around him as well. So we should have three responses to a modern tragedy. Okay, we should be scared. We should be scared that we're going to undergo the same fate. And as a result, we understand the fate that the tragic hero underwent, and we're going to change our lives to make sure that we don't do that. So Arthur Miller is writing this play because he's trying to show people that this could happen. Okay, it can happen to anybody, even to anybody. Willie is just he's a salesman, and he thinks he's got this great life, and he thinks he's going to be great, but he doesn't, because of the steps that he takes and the decisions that he makes, and the influences of society on him. So we're forced to take a look at that and observe the protagonist, who they could be, and how they become displaced in society. And that's really kind of the key. Willie is literally displaced in society. He's displaced in time. He is simultaneously living in 1928 and 1942. And that's really what's kind of throwing him off. And it's not really his fault. The tragic flaw of the protagonist causes them to be torn away from their chosen image of what and who they are in this world. Willie's vision of what he was going to become in this world, he didn't become it. As a result, he felt like a failure, and he eventually commits suicide. We learn, okay, because the protagonist questions all around him. We learn along with them what they did wrong and what what their mistakes were. And hopefully Arthur Miller wants us as people not to repeat the same thing. And the message is, if you do repeat the same thing, the same fate will befall you as befell Willie Loman. So don't do what he did. Don't put emphasis on the wrong types of success. Don't put, don't try to become something that you're not. Willie Loman would have been a fantastic carpenter. Right? He was the most happy when he was out, with his kids, working, washing the car, rebuilding the porch, etc. He was good at it. He would have had a great life, but he didn't see that as, a proper life. He felt that people who worked with their hands, etc., were lesser than he was, and lesser than someone like a salesman. And so he really wanted that salesman life, but he probably wasn't best suited for it. Which is the reason why we do this a lot in high school, is because a lot of people have that kind of influences in their lives. They want to do something, whether they have parents or friends or teachers or anybody else telling them, no, don't do that, you should do this. That takes away from their enjoyment of life. And so we don't want to go down that same road. And finally, is optimism. We should understand that, if we don't make the same mistakes as the tragic hero, things will be better for us. And we want to take a look at the world and see that we understand how the world works, and we're not going to go down the same lines as them. So just some other tragic heroes that I kind of thought about as I was creating this. Severus Snape from Harry Potter. He wants to help as much as he can, but he has all this ambition. He's in this Slytherin house, which is people that are extremely ambitious, etc. And his fall is a direct downfall of, he ends a hero, but he is somewhat of a tragic hero because of the characteristics he possesses. Tony Soprano, probably one of the most famous tragic heroes on TV. Could have been great, is a great leader, but, too full of anger, too full of ambition, wants money, was born into this world, this society around him that he lives with, is telling him that this is how you act, etc. Walter White from Breaking Bad, same kind of idea. Could have been great, but, because of a tragic flaw, ends up falling. Okay, so really this whole not drama study and our whole course in general focuses on the concept of the tragic hero. They have a tragic flaw that eventually brings them down, along with the help of society, of them either not living up to society or some kind of burden that society puts on them, brings them down. Okay.